Okay, so I do have volume up on this. So, excuse me. Uh, it's really hard for me to talk about this week's review, and hopefully I don't belch my way through this review. Um, the reason why it's kind of hard to talk about this movie is it's not because it's offensive, it's not because there's a lot to talk about. The problem is when you've seen as many movies as I have, ranging from the amazing to rock bottom, there's a lot of stuff in between that kind of gives you a average movie. And it's really hard to review movies that are average because there's only so much you can say about those kinds of movies without sitting there and realizing that you're nothing more than that football player at a post-game press conference spouting out nothing but cliches, which in and of itself is a cliche as well. So I'm going to be talking about the latest movie in the Marvel canon, or the Marvel Cinematic Universe canon, uh, Ant-Man and the Wasp. So we've seen a lot of this movie from the trailer, and honestly, if I wanted to do a basic on the surface review of the movie that would have me done within 2 minutes here, all I'd really have to say is that it's just a generic action film with people that can shrink and enlarge themselves. But at the very heart of this movie is the emotional connections between the characters, which seems to be kind of the my allergies are giving me hell today. It seems to be that the connections with family and the want to save someone who's in a bad situation. I know it sounds like every other superhero movie, but in this one's a little more personal because I'm not giving anything away. In the first Ant-Man movie, they flat out say that Michael Douglas's wife shrunk so small that she was never seen from again and was presumed dead. But now apparently Ant-Man, played by Paul Rudd, whose character's name is Scott Lang, has some sort of weird telepathic connection with Hank's wife because he went to this super small subatomic level. I that's one of my big criticisms with the movie is that if they did explain it, I don't really remember it that well. And if they did explain it and I forgot, then that's my fault, not the movie. But if the movie just said that as a plot point, never really explaining why that was, I mean they do explain it, but it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. How is it that when you shrink small enough to get to another dimension, your brain connects with someone else you've never met before? That you see what I mean? It's really weird. Now if Hank had now if the Pims had known Scott for years and then this happened, I understand it more, but this has just seemed it just seemed like this really weird way of connecting the characters in the plot that just it just seemed weird. I don't really know what else to say other than it just seemed weird. The special effects are just as impressive as the first movie, and for a film that obviously uses a lot of CGI, it does look really convincing. It does look really good. And I will say this, I'm not sure why the Marvel movies are so desperate to be very comedic now, but this movie it kind of falls it doesn't fall into the same trap that Thor Ragnarok fell into, which was using so many jokes that it became annoying and insufferable. It kind of it mixed comedy in very well, and there are some scenes in the movie that are really cute and innocent, which kind of gives the film a bit of a charm. And like when Scott Lang is interacting with his estranged daughter, those scenes were really sweet. It was really cute. And the villain, there are a few villains in this movie, but they don't really qualify as a villain to me because their evil plans really have no effect on anybody. Except for Ghost, who has a great backstory, But I think when the writers were trying to write Ghost's personality, they just kind of looked at each other and just shrugged and left the script to its own devices. And for someone who is supposed to be the main antagonist, you kind of need someone that does have a good backstory, or at the very least has a strong character arc that the backstory is superfluous. If you're gonna do a villain that has a tragic backstory, you need to make them interesting in the present, so they're more than just whatever the backstory says they are. Because a backstory gives you the skeleton of the character, but development is what gives the body that character its flesh and muscle. That it just wasn't there in this movie. And I do think that it's kind of cool how they were kind of building up Lawrence Fishburne to be this double crossing bad guy, but at the same time, you could still he still has morals. Like when he's trying to help Ghost overcome her ghostly powers, there are points where Ghost is like, "That's it, I'm gonna kidnap Scott Lang's kid," and Lawrence Fishburne's like, "If you even think about going that far, I am not helping you at all." So there is that sense that there is still a conscience in some of these guys that you would view as the villains. There are a few guys in there that are just the obvious bad guys just because the film needs conflict, but yeah, I mean the movie is just a generic fun action film, and I'm actually surprised I got 6.5 minutes worth of recorded material out of this. So next week I'm not quite sure what I'll review, but it'll probably be Jesus Christ Superstar or something else. But anyway, thank you all for watching, and tomorrow's guitar cover will happen at some point after lunch. Bye.